Despite what the haters will claim, Charmed has a ton of great episodes exploring the characterization of the girls, the world in which they live, their personal relationships, and their dynamics with one another. There are many episodes I could list which could hold their own against episodes in more prestigious shows from the era. But if I had to pick one which I think rises above them all as truly the best Charmed episode, I would go with Season 2's second episode, Morality Bites, which is a fantastic character study for all three sisters and explores the early themes of the show involving witchcraft and accountability incredibly well. The episode starts with what seems like an innocuous event, as the girls slyly use their magic to get revenge on a neighbor who allows his dog to do its business in their front yard. While we do cheer the girls on, this is the first time we've seen them use their magic against someone for vindictive reasons, and while it seems mild enough, this event sparks the entire episode and has such severe consequences that the higher powers on the series actually intervene to set the girls back on the right path, which, at this point in the series, was rare and really underlined the magnitude of what the sisters were about to experience. After their petty act of revenge, Phoebe receives an absolutely horrifying premonition of her future death, seeing herself not only burn at the stake, but watching her sisters stand by and do nothing to save her. Concerned with all aspects of Phoebe's premonition and determined to prevent it from coming to pass, the girls cast a spell to send themselves 10 years into the future. Having previously traveled to the 70s and interacted with younger versions of themselves, the sisters assume that traveling to the future will be the same. But instead, the Hallowells find themselves in their future selves' bodies and are forced to experience all the highs and lows which come with the future. The costuming of the future versions of the sisters is particularly good, and I wanted to shine a quick light on it, given how often Charmed is dragged for its so-called problematic costuming. But this episode brilliantly uses the girls' future outfits to underline their corresponding characterizations in this timeline. Prue's appearance is the most jarring, given the hair color change and the leather outfit, but the whole look works for where Prue is supposed to be in life, which is the extremely successful but also very cutthroat owner of Buckland's auction house. The leather boob tube and skirt are wonderfully inappropriate for the office, but not out of the norm for Prue, who not only started to dress in less office-appropriate outfits in Season 2, keeping with her arc of discovering herself out of the office, but is also true to one of Prue's deeper natures, the slightly more outgoing and danger-craving side, which we see in Which Prue Is It Anyway?, Miss Hellfire, and Just Harried. In all three of these episodes, Prue dresses in more attention-grabbing manners, and it stands to reason that a more dangerous and cutthroat executive Prue would dress this way too. Meanwhile, the blonde hair reminds us that while parts of the Prue we know still exist in this version, she has very much gone outside of her usual persona and become a version of herself she literally cannot recognize. On the flip side, Piper looks relatively unchanged, perhaps a little sleeker and more polished, but overall, she still looks recognizable, fitting with Piper's resistance to change and progression. Her clothes seem a bit more sophisticated, indicating the passage of time, and I particularly love the curls, which emphasize that she has grown as a person, but not to the point of unrecognizability. We also see that she wears her wedding ring, which is significant given what we discover about her relationship status. Phoebe's look is more about her styling than her clothes, given that she's in prison in the future. Her hair is significantly longer, which gives her an older and harder look, especially since her hair is also darker, and this suits her predicament in the episode where we learn she murdered someone in a fit of vengeance. She wears a prisoner jumpsuit, which is magenta in color, an interesting choice given that this particular color often represents nonconformity and free-spiritedness, both of which Phoebe herself represents and which contribute to her future fate. As the sisters continue to learn more about themselves in the future, it's shown that their individual paths and future personas reveal not only their inner desires and wants, but also their fears about how those wants might turn on them. Prue, who has always been very career-driven and spent so much of Season 1 saving Buckland from financial ruin, is initially delighted to discover that she now owns the company she fought so hard to save.
And 3 more, Paris, Tokyo, and London.
This delight soon starts to sour as it's revealed that Prue's success came at the price of dozens of others' jobs, and that she has become insanely cutthroat, cold, and selfish in her pursuit of success. It is also implied that she literally has no close personal relationships, even with her sisters. As the episode progresses and she observes Piper's personal relationships, Prue laments the fact that she has no personal connections of her own and nothing besides work to bring completion to her life. Upon returning to the present, she determines to put more balance in her life, and this becomes a huge ongoing theme in Prue's overall arc, both in seasons 2 and 3, underlining the strength of her characterization in this episode. Piper is also shown to have achieved some of her dreams, initially believing herself to be married, as evidenced by the aforementioned wedding ring, and having a beautiful daughter, both of which she had previously expressed a desire for. However, as with Prue, these desires are soon subverted, as we discover that Piper is actually separated from Leo, the sister's white lighter, with whom she is trying to start a relationship in the present. This episode sets up Piper and Leo's season-long arc of facing the reality of the two of them becoming romantically involved, what it would mean for their respective destinies, and the question of whether they could even make it work. Unfortunately, they do not seem to have been able to do so in the future, and Piper's regret over losing Leo is quite sad, and she struggles with the knowledge of this potential future over the season, especially after she starts dating neighbor Dan. Phoebe fares worst in this episode, showing that her love of magic and indulgence in her own powers, coupled with her quest for justice and desire to protect and defend those she loves, takes her down a dark and ultimately destructive path, where she uses her powers to kill someone in vengeance after said person brutally murdered a dear friend of Phoebe's. It is significant that Phoebe is the sister at the beginning of the episode who suggests using their magic to exact revenge on the dog-walking neighbor. Phoebe has always loved her powers, loved what she can do with them, but she does have a tendency to be impulsive and allow her emotions to rule her, which is exactly what happened in the future and why she ended up in the position that she did. As with her sisters, Phoebe's desires and wants end up turning on her, exposing her witchcraft and landing her on death row. The episode is extremely good at both portraying Phoebe's future self in a sympathetic light, while also making it very clear that she crossed a line. She murdered a man in cold blood using her powers, and the episode makes it very clear that this is a violation of the Wiccan rule introduced in the first episode, and it harm none, do what ye will. One of Phoebe's biggest moments in the episode comes when she has a vision of herself carrying out the violent murder, the horror and trauma of which leaves her devastated at the way she abused her powers. This theme of Phoebe using her powers for her own personal gain, power, and vengeance is a running theme with her over the series, and we see it bite her several times. Again, this episode wonderfully establishes roots for later characterization, demonstrating the strength of its writing. On the flip side, while the episode condemns Phoebe's actions, it also clearly shows that Nathaniel Pratt, the man responsible for hunting, exposing, and condemning her as a witch, is also very much in the wrong. While Phoebe should face the consequences of her actions, Pratt's ensuing vendetta against witches and magic is clearly shown to be fueled by ignorance and hatred, and is rightly shown in a very negative light, as it's revealed that Pratt's modern-day witch hunts have been going after innocent people and is being used to spread fear and propaganda.
See, you represent everything I abhor. You're a threat, a danger to everything that is good and pure in our world.
You're talking out of fear.
The boldest part of this episode is the decision to let Phoebe burn. Not because the episode lets her die, but because the episode lets her die even though her sisters could have saved her. This is an incredibly important plot point because it demonstrates that even if Phoebe murdered someone evil, even if her sisters feel justified in breaking her out, even if their powers could hide her, it's ultimately the wrong thing to do. Phoebe murdered another human being, using her powers for vengeance, and she must face the consequences, something Phoebe herself realizes and explains to her sisters, in what is probably one of the most heartbreaking scenes in all of Charmed.
Our job is to protect the innocent, not punish the guilty. And I crossed that line, and I know that. And now you guys have to know that too.
Phoebe's strength in this episode is quite amazing to watch, as she bravely burns in her future self's place, cementing the very hard lesson that the girls were sent to the future to learn. And, as the end of the episode shows, Phoebe has clearly learned the harsh lesson given to her, as she calls out her sisters for trying to exact the same petty revenge which started the whole mess in the first place. Pointing out that this was the first time they used their powers for vengeance, Phoebe shows an understanding of their magic and how it's supposed to be used, and a further reveal shows that the neighbor was none other than Nathaniel Pratt, the man hunting them in the future. This tiny moment shows the ripple effect and the consequences of the sisters abusing their powers, and it's an incredibly strong note for the episode to end on, bringing it full circle. Overall, Morality Bites is a harrowing but exemplary episode, diving into the rules of the sisters' world, the consequences of their magic, and the underlying theme of the Charmed ones being a force of good, not vengeance or punishment. The episode sets up arcs for all three sisters and delves into their characters' desires, ambitions, and deeper yearnings, all while teaching the sisters a hard but very necessary lesson in universe. And all this combined is why I believe that Morality Bites is indeed Charm's best episode.